Welcome to Euroforum UG, where we address Ugandans from Europe, USA, Asia, Africa, Australia, and all over the globe. We share experiences, opinions, and expertise on current affairs, educative lifestyle, religion, and family matters. Follow, subscribe, and like our social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Euroforum UG. You can also join our live shows every weekend on our social media platforms. For more information, visit our social media platforms or email us at euroforumug@gmail.com or WhatsApp us on +4740 574040. Euroforum UG, communicating with peers.
We greet you all wherever you are. This is Euroforum, Moses Mugisha. I come to you from Oslo, Norway. This is a very unique show. In the history of Euroforum, this is the very first show that has been aired at this time of the day. Here in Oslo, Norway, it's 10:38. And I believe in the different parts of the world, it is either night or evening. Today, we come in with a guest who is from New Zealand, and that gives reason to us as to why we're having a show at this time. It is a very unique one, a very special one to me as an individual, but also to the nature of the conversation we're here to have. Today, we are coming in where there is a lot happening around the world. We want to greet you all wherever you are. Thank you so much for always tuning into Euroforum. We want to invite you wherever you are. Today, it's Europe, New Zealand. Actually Europe, Oceania, that continent, and it's Norway, New Zealand. It's such an amazing experience having a conversation where one party is in another state of the day and another is in another. As I speak, it's 9:38, like I said, in Norway, and my guest in New Zealand will tell us what the time is in their country, which might actually be a different day. But that gives it reason as to why it's on this day. I want to greet you all out there, every Ugandan out there who is doing something to see that there is a difference in your closed space or the space around you. Shout out to you, Regadios, for what you do on TikTok, creating awareness and giving life to those, the lifeless, the hopeless. And Mufano Alan here in Norway, shout out to you, whatever you're doing out there. I want to greet the Ugandans, leaders in the Netherlands, who are actually going to host us in the European tournament next year. European tournament, and that entire European tournament leadership headed by Alex Nduga, Denmark. And again, I want to congratulate our fellow Ugandan, the current mayor in the New York City, that's Zoran Mamdan. Of course, I've had reflections of people arguing that Ugandans, we have no reason to celebrate this victory, Tasimona Uganda. But also there is a contra-argument that if it was a terrorist who hit one of the buildings in America, would in the news brand him Ugandan? So just as we celebrate people who come from our countries, I think somewhere in the public spaces, when things are done wrongly, it is easier to say, oh yeah, very. When are done better, doesn't belong to you. But for us, we celebrate every Ugandan, every milestone, every achievement, wherever you are. This is a very unique show where we're coming in with a guest, a lady, Julie Nalubwama. She's coming in now from New Zealand. This conversation is going to be juggled through 2 different languages, English and Luganda, where need be, to just make it Kasavu Kanyama and to engage you wherever you are. This is a very great honor to me as an individual to be sharing a platform with you, Julie.
Thank you.
You're a fellow Ugandan, but a Ugandan who gives me pride and airs of importance when I share a platform with you. This is a lady who has shared a platform or platforms with different heads of state, platforms with EU delegates, platforms with officials in the UN. And for me, it's a step forward. And I'm looking forward to this great conversation with you. She is a fighter, an achiever, an academic fighter, a career fighter. Because having shared a platform with presidents, it's just clear that you're somewhere in terms of career. But especially, and to relate with this show, she is a life fighter, one who has battled and conquered one of those aggressive illnesses. And to me, this makes you very, very unique and gives a lot of importance to this conversation. But for me, you living in Norway or in Europe, you might wonder, omusajja ono kusaawa nnyo kitundu ez'okukola akola ki ku social media? And to me, this also makes it special. For the last 3.5 months, I've been in my paternity leave, and this day is my last day in my paternity leave. This also makes it special. Now, let me bring in Julie. Nyawo Julie, what an honor, what a privilege to be sharing a platform with you. Nyawo, great to have yours.
Thank you, Sebo. I would say good morning or good afternoon, wherever you may be. But here, I would have to say good night because probably everyone has gone to bed. It's 10:42 p.m. on Friday night. So in a few hours, according to the world clock, we should be in Saturday. In probably less than 2 hours, it will be Saturday morning. So here I would have said good night. Naye, I'm very happy to be interacting with all of you, wherever you may be. And thank you very much for having me today on this platform.
The pleasure is mine, Julie, and it's a very unique one. New Zealand is the center of focus for this first part of the show. When someone saw the flyer, they wondered if New Zealand was part of Europe. And I said, visit Google, but in case you don't have the time, find time and join our show. All of New Zealand, where is it anyway? But speak to me, where is New Zealand located?
That's very interesting. I have had people ask me, is it in Europe? Is it in North Africa? Is it in North America? And it feels nice placing us everywhere. And I think that's something people in New Zealand have learned to gracefully accept wherever they place us. Because when God was creating the world, somebody said when he had finished creating everything and he put a full stop to his creation, where that full stop is where New Zealand is. So New Zealand is
that's interesting.
A very unique country that when you have finished looking at visiting all the countries, where the full stop is, if you look at the world map, it's quite small and isolated from everyone else. And it is in the corner within the ocean, right in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And so that's where New Zealand is. So practically, our neighbors, if I can put ourselves into that geographical perspective, where you would say, for example, Uganda is neighbored by Congo, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda. We are neighbored by nobody. There is no neighbor. New Zealand is one of the few countries that has no neighbor at all. We are just surrounded by water, and we are within the Oceania continent. And after New Zealand, there is no other country. That's the end of all the countries. After New Zealand is Antarctica. So it's just the polar bears and the ice. So there are no other countries after New Zealand. So that's the end of all the countries you would expect. That's where we are located. And it's an amazing place to be because we are, sometimes people feel we are forgotten, but we get to see the sunrise very early before anyone does, because we are literally one day ahead of everyone. So when it's Friday on your side, it's probably Saturday here. So we get to see New Year's before anyone else does. By the time the world is talking about first, we are into 2nd of January. Every day we see the sun before anyone does. And it is beautiful. It's a very beautiful place.
So at least you're lucky to be having polar bears as your neighbors. Speaking of Oceania as the continent, which other countries are in Oceania?
Oceania has quite, well, the islands. There is Samoa, there is Tonga, there are others are quite not very common to other people. That there is Fiji. So probably Fiji is one of those that people may hear.
Yeah,
The others are
Fiji.
very tiny, small islands, but absolutely beautiful and lovely. So what I would have, there are 14 countries within Oceania, and maybe just one small other beautiful thing about New Zealand, and I don't know if it's the same about everyone in Oceania, but in New Zealand it's the only, actually it's the only country, not even others in Oceania, it's the only country in the whole world that has no snakes. So it has no snakes, it has no predators.
That's a unique one.
We don't have predators like wild animals or anything like that. So because it's that peaceful and we don't have neighbors and nobody gets to disturb our peace, New Zealand is a home to so many birds. And something about the birds here is that many of them never learned how to fly because there is nothing that scares them. So they literally walk like chicken. And they lay their eggs on the ground. They don't get to put their bird. So where we come from, birds would lay their eggs in a nest because they're trying to keep them away from a predator. But then here, because there is no one to threaten them, you'll find many birds get to lay their eggs on the ground like chicken, and they just walk. They don't fly. So it's that peaceful. Yeah.
This actually gives more reasons for people to be more curious about New Zealand as a country. When we posted the flyer, someone asked if they could really get in contact with you to know how could they, among other countries, get to New Zealand, because to them it feels, even the name itself makes it feel so unique, so special. But as we sail on, maybe a lot of these answers and curiosities will be served. You watching us, we are live on Facebook and YouTube. So feel the comfort of choosing between either Facebook or YouTube. But again, would highly recommend and request that you watch us more on YouTube. Facebook recently enacted a policy where live videos are taken down after 30 days. So in future, the future of 10, 5, 1 year, this video on Facebook won't be there, but we are sure it will be on YouTube. So please, we encourage you to watch us mostly on YouTube. But in case that means you have to watch us on Facebook, we highly appreciate that. This is a conversation that comes in at a very unique hour of the day. I want to thank you all Ugandans out there, all Ugandan diasporans, or immigrants generally. Whatever you're doing out there, you're highly appreciated. Shout out to you, Irene Visatso, a YouTuber who does a lot to create awareness and share own information out there. And I want to take it out generally to you leaders, wherever you are. Such conversations come to speak life, to breathe life into others as we tell stories. Julie comes in from New Zealand, a country where everything seems to be new. But we want to take a segment of both life in New Zealand, but also her story. And also want to give you heads up that on the 23rd, that will be next Sunday, we shall be coming back with her to using her counseling psychology background, because she's a counseling psychologist who is also a peace and a conflict transformation practitioner. So tapping into that, we shall be bringing her back on the 23rd, the Sunday, which will be actually 24th for them, the following day, to speak about the danger of a one-sided story. She'll be sharing a PowerPoint presentation on this. But right now, Julie, I heard you say, our peace, speaking of New Zealand, our peace in our country. You sound so integrated, and you sound like New Zealand you have it at heart. And on the flip of a coin, I've heard people who have lived 10, 20, or even 30 years in countries like France, Norway, Canada, and they're saying, in these people's country, their country, so they don't sound like they're already attached to the country. You sound like you're very attached to New Zealand. How long have you lived in New Zealand?
Yes, I'm really attached to New Zealand. I've been here 3 years, and it's 3 years because I came to start my studies, and that's what brought me to New Zealand. My doctoral studies at the University of Otago, which is in the south of New Zealand. So New Zealand is, even though it's a small country, it's divided into two islands, the North Island and the South Island. So, and these islands again are divided by water. So moving from one island to another, the easiest way would be to fly. So I did come on the South Island at the University of Otago to do my doctoral studies in peace and conflict. So it hasn't been a very long time here, 3 years, but I can call it home. So the thing about New Zealand is that it's a very extremely welcoming culture. It's a very cultured country. And because they are few, it's a country with 5 million people only. And in some of the cities that are small or towns, everybody knows everybody. So even if you're a new person who has come, people will, quickly know that there is a new person, there is a new face. So people are really just so welcoming and nice. And the sense of community is a very strong one that I haven't experienced probably elsewhere. I should say, not even home. Maybe long ago it was there in Uganda, but many things have come in and have diluted it. I mean, it is quite common in Uganda to stay on an apartment block and your neighbor just locks their door and passes by you without saying hello. But that would not happen in New Zealand. It's a place where you sit in a bus and people would say hello, and then you pick a conversation like you know each other very well, whether it's at a supermarket or at doctor's place or wherever it will be. People make sure that they make you feel at home. We are few, so we care about feeling strongly for one another. And so once you've been here a few days, it becomes home. It literally becomes home. Yeah.
Okay, now I can relate to your feeling of home already. Just 3 years, it feels like home. Actually, feeling that is more like a typical Ugandan feeling. You as an immigrant, okay, 5 million people. That's very small a population. But the distribution of immigrants, how are there many immigrants you've met?
Incidentally, there are not too many, I should say. It's not a destination country for immigrants generally because, one, of distance. New Zealand is far removed from everybody in the world. So by the time you cross those oceans to come here for immigration purposes, because sometimes what makes people move, one, especially in Africa or in the Arab countries, it could be war and conflict, which is my passion to study. So imagine how far you would have to go to come to New Zealand. But the idea is that when there is conflict and war, you're running for safety to preserve life. So you would want to go to the nearest place where that can be achieved and you can be able to, find safety. It's really flight. So you're not in cases of desperation and utter crisis, you're looking for survival.
Yeah, exactly.
More, and then the thriving may come later. So New Zealand wouldn't be a quick place for survival because it's very far away from everybody in the whole world. People tend to think that New Zealand is near Australia, but not quite. Not quite. It is far removed and even different time zones. So we're not even in the same time zone with Australia. So it would be hard for many migrants to come. So that means that people who end up coming here, it's quite targeted in the sense that I'm quite intentional. If it is migration, then it would be maybe for studies or for work, or, or you have a spouse, those other different reasons. And then sometimes people find it very cold, especially on the South Island where I am, because we're just close to Antarctica. So people tend to want places that are warmer or closer to home, especially Africa. You don't want Africans cry every winter everywhere.
You don't want to move to a country where your immediate neighbors are polar bears.
No, and it would be very, very, and because of that, it becomes a very expensive country in terms of cost of living as well as travel. Cost of living means if something is not manufactured in New Zealand, it will be flown in as the quickest means to get
which
into the
makes it even more
population,
expensive.
which makes it quite expensive. Or if it comes by the sea, it still takes a very long time, and all the other complexities of navigating sea life, you know. So it can't be perishables. It can't be, consumables that are used on a day-to-day basis, because then they would take a long time to cross the Pacific to get here. So that means that the cost of living is extremely high, because then whatever else is not manufactured here and is imported comes in at a high cost.
Okay, I
But
have my
luckily,
visa. Okay, go on.
Luckily, New Zealand has enough. It's a very self-sufficient country. And people say it's the country where we have more sheep than people. So we are farmers. I would say we are very big farmers. And so we export a lot of, whether it's dairy or food or so. We can survive. We can survive quite a lot without other people, yeah.
Greetings to you, Ivan Mwanje, Lukia Mbazira. Thank you for tuning in. I remind you all that we're also live on YouTube, just as we're on Facebook. Tune in and we engage and we tap into another unknown part of the world, New Zealand. It is now that some people are knowing that New Zealand is not part of any common continents, but Oceania. And I'm sure not so many people actually are familiar with that. I have my visa. I'm taking a flight from Entebbe. How long is it from Entebbe to New Zealand?
So from Entebbe to New Zealand, if you're going to use the most direct flight, because then there are others that are, you go from one place to another, that would ideally take about a minimum of 72 hours if it's not direct. But the most direct flight
that is 3 days.
Yes, would be or more. The most direct would be 38 hours.
38 hours.
Yes.
Okay, that is close, almost 2 days already. 38 hours. 38 hours. Okay.
Thereabouts.
And that's the beauty with tapping into moving from our comfort zones to get to know how people experience life, how people live. That is so far New Zealand for you, and I believe a lot is yet to come in. A Ugandan lady living in New Zealand, cultural contexts. How have you found the cultural clashes between the two, Ugandan culture and New Zealand culture?
So incidentally, it's not very different, because traditionally, so people from New Zealand, even though people may call them New Zealanders, actually they're called Kiwis. So like you would have said, Ugandans, people from New Zealand are called Kiwis. So Kiwis are not very different from Ugandans, because traditionally the indigenous tribes that are here, which are called the Maori, are very much like us. And a few of the people in the islands here, the other islands I talked about, like Fiji or Tonga or Samoa, they trace their roots actually from East Africa, which is amazing, because we don't look the same at all. But they say some of their ancestors came from there. So the culture is quite similar. It's a very respectful culture. It is very family oriented and community oriented. It is nothing different from Uganda. The respect of elders, but maybe something that is different a little bit would be people here are not direct as people would expect. So they are more like the old Baganda, I would say, very polite, very afraid to offend. And so if there is a problem, somebody may not come out to say there is a problem. They'll find another nice way of saying. So if you're not keen, you will miss it. You will miss the complaint somebody's trying to make, because they are not trained and brought up that way to express, be very expressive and confrontational. They don't know how to be confrontational. Again, probably because they've lived, far from everyone. It's just like they are birds. So Bantu bakwata mpola ate bakakamu nnyo, very, very polite, very, very calm. So there is no huge difference in terms of culture between a Ugandan and a Kiwi.
Have you met any Ugandans?
Very few. People tend, the biggest part of people who migrate here from Africa are from the southern part of Africa, specifically South Africa and Zimbabwe. And what is very funny is when we come here, the South Africans who come here are mostly the white, to us, the white or the Africans who are white in skin or brown. So they're the ones who come here. But when we are here, I can't tell you how many times I've met people, and because you're black and they know you're from Africa, they will hug you and say, you're my brother. And I have a daughter who is 8 years old, and she had a problem understanding how we are brothers, because you're white and black. We are not brothers, clearly. But then they would say, I'm from South Africa, so we are brothers and sisters. So the biggest number of brothers and sisters here is white, but then they feel so African that they don't even remember that they have a different skin color. So those are the most people that you would see here from Africa. And it's because of a special program, I think, that was enforced back then during apartheid, where they wanted to provide a safe space for them when things were not happening well. So I think many of them migrated here. So most of them would be white, and then others from Zimbabwe are, of course, dark like us or black. Very few Ugandans, very few East Africans, because it's not a country we talk about in East Africa. We don't talk about it here. So you will rarely find people from North Africa, from East Africa, from Central Africa. So it's just a few of us, but we do feel at home.
How often are they? Are they, I mean, native? Did you call them Kiwi? Native
Yes.
Kiwi?
Yes.
Actually, that's new to me. I would call them New Zealanders. Okay, native Kiwi.
How often Kiwis.
How often are they to immigrants?
Oh, they're very open to immigration, because you see, New Zealand is actually a British colony, so it's part of the Commonwealth. And because they have faced the same impact of colonization like we did, there is a lot we share in common in trying to understand our stolen history and all that that happened when colonialism came. So they're quite embracing, but also naturally their culture is very welcoming. People are never considered strangers. So it is funny because they refer to, to us as brothers or sister. It's quite common that somebody talks to you, my sister, in that way, in that context. And it's not a church context, because in a church context...
My sister, you're referring to a fellow immigrant or a native Kiwi?
A native who will refer to you as my sister.
Wow.
So many of them will literally call you sis, or sister or brother. Not the bro, that's the English bro, that they use, but to literally mean brother. That's how they mean, brother or sister. And so here you will find it quite common that we also call people auntie, which is quite common in Africa, especially the Maori, because of respect. So because of respect, I wouldn't just come and say to an elderly lady I wouldn't call her by her first name. In a traditional Maori setting, they wouldn't. But like I said, because of colonization, so you do have a huge population of the British that came and stayed here. They've grown up here. For them, they would still say, they would still call maybe somebody by their first name, but that's where you see the difference. That this is
Maoris, those who are bending more on the .com era.
On the yes, so those would be the people would be quite respectful, but it's just a beautiful culture. It's easy to blend in because people are very open. They're open to learning. They're open to taking in other cultures. They're, I guess sometimes the things we've been through and the shared history that we may have been in different places, but there is a bit of shared history, and that kind of binds us together. And it just kind of reminds me of the same concepts we have in Africa. In South Africa, they would call it Ubuntu, but back home too, we call it Ubuntu. You know, it's the same thing.
Ubuntu, something like that.
Ubuntu, fena tuli bantu. At the end of the day, they have the same concept. Fena tuli bantu, and life is sacred. So that's how they would treat you, and that's how they treat also other things within the environment, including trees and rivers and actually nabo balanyanga ffe we bakubuuza nti Nalubwama ovaawa n'ogamba nva mu mutuba gwa Lusimbi, tuva Baka, tuva. So here balanya, but you have to know your mountain, ova mu nsozi ki, which rivers, which. So omuntu taba muntu just plainly, but ovaawa, wasibukawa, mu nsozi ki, mu migachi. And something about Maori people, which the rest of the world copied, is that they are tattooed. So those tattoos are cultural tattoos, but ensindo za tattoos abanyumira. So never zetekako, but with different things.
With this, do you mean that tattoos originated from New Zealand? When you say which some people copied?
Yeah, I think so, most likely, because it's that. And how they do it is that they did it quite traditionally with fish bones and, you know, ink and all that. And they still do it sometimes like that. But I mean, there are professional ways of doing tattooing these days. But those tattoos are not just for decoration.
Signs and beauty.
Yes, it shows who you are, your heritage, your story, where you have been and who you are and what you believe in and where you're going. So you will see a lot of tattoos, and they are quite cultural.
Wow. You see the beauty of opening up boundaries, digital boundaries, to get to know what happens on the other side of life. I saw already a couple of questions here. We shall come to those. There is one from Lukia Mbazira asking about tuition costs and asking if whether universities are expensive. Yes, we shall get to that. But before that, speak to me. So many reasons why people migrate or move to different countries. Those that move purposely to work. New Zealand, how is the job market and job opportunities that side?
The job opportunities are there, but they are very specific. So New Zealand every year would produce what they call a green list. A green list is a list that comes out of the market survey by the experts, and then they figure out that for us to go to this level where we want to go for the vision that we have for this country, we need this number of engineers, we need this number of doctors, we need this number of teachers, we need this number of. So based on that green list, they will then release it publicly, and it's online. So anybody, by the way, anybody, Ayagala, just go online and put in New Zealand green list. If you have any skill among those that are listed, New Zealand would open doors to you. And those skills, ezimu, they were considering anti quite important. And most of those would definitely, it would be called a skilled migrant visa that you would get, come with residence. Skills ezimu, the skills zetunyome waffe nga plumber, abasizi ba langi, abazimbi, abawayaringa amasanyalaze. It's big, but you know, back home oli ayinza okugamba omwana teyeyongerayo twamugamba akole wiring. Those are not simple things. They are not simple things. People have come here, makanika. People have come here with their families, and that is fully paid for because asobola okanika emmotoka, because asobola okukola plumbing, because asobola okusiiga langi. Ate nga omuntu gwe tuyinza okonsideringa nti no yasomye nnyo oba alina empapula eza waggulu ayinza obutafuna. So I would just encourage people, just go in look at the green list. There are so many categories on the green list. See if you have any skills that are listed. And then it is possible. And then something about New Zealand that I don't see quite common with other countries is that the country does provide, not for them, they don't pay for you, but they're accredited immigration agents that you can work with. Tebasobola bakkiriza kusaba sente nga bo bagala. They are regulated by the government. So they have thresholds eze sente ze basobola okusabiramu n'engeri gye basobola okukolamu. You can even sue them. You can bakozi nga abalala naye ng'omulimu gwabwe gwa kuyamba kufuna visa. So si bino byankoleraako empapula oba ki mu bubba. No. Government provides proper people, and there is a whole list on Immigration New Zealand website of who is accredited. Anybody on that accredited list, you can talk to them and ask them, how do I come to New Zealand? Nkoze ntya? No, oyinza n'obbawa ebipapula byo ne bagamba okay katuwa kwa assessing nti abamu asobola n'okuba nga asobola okunoonya omulimu. I mean, I don't know, they do quite a lot of things, but you have to talk to them. There is a fee to that, but usually the first consultancy you have with them would be free, but then consequently you would have to pay. So the government does provide people to help you work on your visa process to bring you to New Zealand.
Yeah, well, that's captured, and I'm underlining green list. Yes, to you watching us, find the comfort of embracing such knowledge. Green list or HHDO. Looping into this question here, please talk about the tuition costs there. Are there universities? No, universities there expensive? Nyabo, you went there purposely for studies. Now I need you to share knowledge on this. University access, zirizitia, are they expensive? Zisoboka wazama mwekaba PhD.
So New Zealand is quite a country. Kubanga, expensive is relative. Naye, it is affordable. Because when you come as an international student, era bakuwa oluksa okola osobola supporting. But in coming in here, you have to show that you should be able to support yourself. So maybe something I would say about New Zealand, one of their best products out there is their education. It provides some of the bestest education in the whole world. I go to the University of Otago, and it is one of the top best 1%, in the top 1% best universities in the whole world. So it's ranked quite highly, and so are many other universities in New Zealand. So very well ranked in terms of education. Fees is it's relative. It may be affordable, but if it's not the end of the world, because New Zealand itself, one as a government, but also as universities, they do provide scholarships. So you just have to meet the criteria of those scholarships. If you are admitted and you don't have means of coming here, you can explore. Every university does have a scholarships office and a scholarships department that you can contact, and then they will definitely guide you on how the process is. Does it mean that everyone who comes gets the scholarships? No. But do many people get them? Yes. And there are options, like there are tens of thousands of scholarships. So it's about knowing which one would work best for you. Some are specifically for science people, and in sciences, some are specifically for maybe pediatrics or genetics, or so literally buli area eberina. But if the department, sometimes they are in your department, and if the department doesn't have, then the university does have. If the university doesn't have, then the government does have. So there are quite enough options to explore.
Yeah, well, Webale, I hope it was Ambazira. Yes, I hope your question is answered. But I also believe that you asked for so many others. I love the way you answer your questions. And please feel free to keep those questions flowing in. Shout out to you out there. Like I said, doing community work, serving your community, wherever you are, doing something that is of impact. Shout out to you, my friend, Smoggy, John Remy in Denmark, running a platform, Afro Den, tapping two stories and experiences in Denmark, together with your team member, Solomon Emongo, Mwebali, Chemukola side. My church fraternity, from which actually I got to know you, Julie, Stockholm, Uganda. Mbatumirako olweggulo tugenda kusinkana. I believe many of you are there watching. N'abalambagaye bajje balabe nga tunyumyamu ne Julie. Yes, it's a conversation around life in New Zealand, but also Julie telling part of her story. Through this, she has perhaps told a bit of her story, but New Zealand stories and experiences are really wide. We intend to bring her for several segments to come, and the first one will be on the 23rd, next Sunday, where she'll be talking about the danger of a one-sided story. So, but for now, let's kind of live experiences in New Zealand and go to Julie as an individual. You're going to New Zealand for studies tells so much actually more so PhD studies. Tells so much of how much has been built underneath here. Masters, bachelors, 1,000 certificates, I don't really know. So you're pursuing a PhD in New Zealand. Speak to me of your academic life before getting to New Zealand.
Wow. My academic journey has been very interesting. Partly this feels like a job interview, having to talk about it in that way.
Kind of.
But I started my career in counseling psychology, and it's because I have a passion for working with people. I love working with people. I love working with groups of people, whether it's individuals or groups or communities. So I started my work in counseling psychology, and at that time we worked with UNHCR to receive refugees in Uganda, and I was working in Kampala at that time. I was working for InterAid, and I was an urban caseload counselor. So at that time there was an influx of refugees, and the stories people came with were very difficult to fix on the psychology side. And I was wondering what's going on? Why are all these people leaving their countries? So that took me on an exploration, and I discovered people are leaving because of conflicts in their countries. And I was wondering, but why can't they solve these conflicts? And then I discovered these were not conflicts. You sit over the table, I sit this side, you sit that side, and it's all done. Everybody go back to your country. So trying to understand and look for answers, I actually went into peace and conflict. At that time, I was very enthusiastic, thinking, we need to fix this, we need to fix this, we need to fix what's happening in Congo, in Rwanda, in Somalia, in South Sudan. At that time, Uganda and Kenya were the only islands of stability in the region. And maybe Tanzania, but the rest of everyone, whether it's Central African Republic, DRC, Rwanda, Burundi, was at war. There was conflict going on. So I discovered it's not a quick fix, and I really went into peace and conflict, trying to understand what we can do. And into peace and conflict, then I realized there is quite a lot of policy issues there, a lot of governance issues. So I went into doing policy and governance to try and strengthen the peace and conflict. Because then you most of the conflicts that we have on the continent, a lot of them do come from politics, from resources, from, a lot of around there, around governance. So that's where most of them stem. And I thought, we need to be able to link the two. So I did my postgraduate in public policy and governance, but I discovered it's not enough. So I started thinking, because there were more answers to look for, and that's how I went into international security and conflict studies, which I did in Ireland, in Dublin. And when I did that, I felt like, I think I'm a little bit better equipped to come back home and we work around these issues, which I did. And I was very privileged to work with wonderful people, work with wonderful partners. That work took me in places that I was very humbled to be in. like you said, whether it's, places where they're heads of state or there are people who, policymakers and development partners or ambassadors, they call the shots. That's how somebody would say. But being in that space was not to call shots with them because we were not equals in any way. But being in that space was having the privilege to influence and work around issues that affect the common people. So you kind of become a voice in places where people will not be able to come, and influence things, not all for the people who are having power, but for the people who are having less power, so that they can also live meaningful lives. So it was such a privilege working in those spaces. It was very challenging, and I remember very many sleepless nights because there are decisions that are so life-threatening that by morning, a decision has to be made, and it has to be a right decision. So that means that you will work through the night so that when daybreak comes, life is preserved, life is saved. So many sleepless nights, but they were all worth it. So that brought me to that long era of work in different spaces, in different conflict spaces. I've been in places where I've seen, bloodshed. I've seen life lost in huge numbers. And it just gave me more resolve to work. But I guess that sometimes in life, there comes a point, you're human, and I felt that I needed to take a step back, reflect, and then refresh and come back again to do the same work. So that's what took me to New Zealand, to try and reflect and relearn and unlearn and learn new things in the kind of work I was doing.
Wow. I love this. I love this. And I actually asked one question where you ended up answering two. About your academic journey, but also you've tapped into your life experience, which is both awakening in line with how we see people and how we the stereotypes around people. And perhaps if there is a non-Ugandan or a friend of Ugandan watching this show, it also speaks so much of how the so-called minorities or the so-called immigrants can be viewed with very shallow lenses. But when people hear such stories and experiences, it is both a resource we sell out there internationally, but also to a Ugandan, echoing out that ibintu bino bisoboka wala babikoze nange nsobola okubikola. Yes, you've shared it, but I've also checked. ChatGPT has given me some info about you. Platforms like LinkedIn let out so much information about people, and you sharing platforms with heads of states, EU delegates, UN delegates. Of course, this is a privilege, but for you as an individual, what experiences and life lessons have you learned from you meeting and your time you've had with these people?
Wow, that's a very good question, Moses. What have you learned? There is so much to learn, and I will summarize it. I'll try to summarize it. But at the core of these people, many times there is a human being. At the core of the power, the pomp, or whatever else we may put around the air that these people may have, at the core of it, there is a human being. And for me, my work is to literally look for that human being in that power and appeal to that human being. And that sometimes it's so hard to penetrate them because, I'll just get my power. So it's so hard to penetrate the human being because of what is surrounding them. Literally, there's so many barriers. There could be a power barrier. There could be a resource barrier. There could be even just people around them who want to share in that power. So getting to the person, to the core, is where the huge challenge is, but when you do, at the end of the day, we are all human beings. I have been in places where I have seen people make decisions and change decisions right there and then that going to impact millions of people or a nation, just because you've been able to penetrate and, speak to them as a human being, not as the president, not as the UN representative, not as the head of mission, or, all those other titles that we call people. So for me, the challenge every day is when I look at figures, positions, offices, and these offices can be big. I'm just wondering, where is the person? And sometimes the person could be hiding in another person, and you need to be able to find that other person to be able to get through to what you want. So at the end of the day, I think for me, what I'm just saying is that we have a shared humanity. Fena tuli bantu at the end of the day. So when you're treating people differently, or when people make decisions, it's always important to remind them that we do have something in common. You who has the power and those who don't, the haves and the haves not. And that is our shared humanity. That's one of the key things I've learned. But the other thing I have learned is that in life, you only get what you fight for. It's very unfortunate, but that's the truth. And that's how it will always be. You don't get what you deserve. You may deserve it. And you don't get what rightly belongs to you, because it may rightly actually belong to you. Human rights are universal rights. They belong to us. They are inherent. Nobody can take them away. That's what they are, human rights. They are rights because you're human. But guess what? They will not give you those rights until you fight for them, even though they are your rights. So it's just how life is, that you only get what you fight for. That imagine somebody had to fight for the right for women to vote, for example. Somebody had to fight for the right for the girl child or the boy, all these things we talk about, those rights. And that's why we are always reminding people, especially people who are supposed to be the elite, who are supposed to be in power. We have to keep reminding them of these things and fight for them, for people to be able to access those things. So what it has taught me is that, and sometimes when you're in those spaces where there is power, where there is control, what you're really trying to do is fight for what may rightly belong to you or to the people you represent. Or so bottom line is, you don't get what you deserve or what rightly belongs to you, or you only get what you fight for. Those are some of the key lessons I have learned doing this work. But then the other thing I have learned is that in life, life is so unpredictable. Life is so unpredictable.
Sure.
And that doesn't spare anybody. I have seen people who have power. When they come in, you feel power has arrived. And today, they are nowhere. And I can't believe it. And I do remember and relive those moments with them. And I'm thinking, my goodness, even God probably fears this person. In one way, you think, even God feels this power. And
humanly, you might be compelled to do so.
Tomorrow, it is not there. So really, nothing lasts forever. It's good to be humble. And that is my last lesson I will tell you. Humility is strong. It beats anything and everything. Humility opens doors, experience and power and everything can't open. So wow. I have learned a lot from people who are very humble, and I admire them. And I really wish that when I grow up, I can be like some of them. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Again, this gives me more pride and value addition to myself having this conversation with you, because you're echoing out things that you've learned from those we admire to meet. You've met them. And I also love it that the lessons you've learned, you're already practicing them. This humility. It is until you speak that someone gets to know that big profile of you. I quoted when you said about people having so much power, the power they have, the experience. I mean, that feeling of control they have. I've also learned from my experience during the community work we do. People get so happy. They want to give gratitude, feedback of what we do. And at some point, people give us a lot of hairs of importance. I mean, they kind of praise us to a level that you can easily be swallowed away or swept away by pride. Someone recently addressed me as Wechitibwa, and we were speaking Luganda, and this person is well grounded in the Mengo setting, ebya Buganda. So we all know Echigambo Wechitibwa. Who should take that? Okay, and I was like, okay, nsimye nnyo munnange, naye no, tukyuse. So, and I think that's a trap where people tag us different titles, and we also fall prey of such overstatements and exaggerations. So I think that's also something that actually affects many leaders, where people make them feel immovable, immortal, irreplaceable, and all those tags. Thank you for those lessons, and I believe a message goes out there to everyone. And mostly those having power. You are a peace negotiator to that person who has just joined the show. Julie Nalubwama is a Ugandan living in New Zealand. Well, she has lived there for only 3 years. She's a peace negotiator. She's the conflict resolver, and we shall have conversations with you here where you give tips on the basics of conflict resolution. Tujja bifuna. Somewhere you mentioned in your life experience, academic life and life experiences, where you said you've been humbled by the experiences that you've gone through. Your life experiences, 3 years in New Zealand, but there is a trail of experiences away from New Zealand. Which countries have you been to?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Maybe I would say I've been to...
Maybe to give direction to this question.
Yeah.
This is guided by your work experience. And I've worked with peace negotiations. So just out of curiosity, which countries guided by your work experience have you been to?
Well, I can say, let me just speak generally. I've worked in Africa, and I've worked mostly within, the Great Lakes region, within East Africa, maybe let me say within the East African community. I've also been in the southern part of Africa. Yes, I've been in the northern part of Africa as well. Yeah, quite a bit in these countries, but maybe what I wanted to say, and Europe and North America, but what I wanted to say is something I have seen people say is, I have been to these countries, I've been here, I've been there. Being in a country on an assignment and living in a country are totally two different experiences. Absolutely.
I totally agree.
And for people who count experiences, and I have been in South Africa maybe for 6 weeks doing something, it is not equivalent to living in South Africa. Yeah, because a lot of that life that I live there, whether it's 3 months or whatever time it may be, is quite shielded from the normal complexities of life in South Africa. For example, sometimes you have a pre-arranged accommodation, pre-arranged transport, so you're quite shielded from the real life. So visiting those countries, for me, it may just give you a little snippet into what maybe the country looks like, the outlook or the food and all that, but it may not really give you that deep insights into how people live, the dynamics of life and all that. So I take that with a lot of humility and don't want to think about which countries have I lived, and so I won't mention them. Have I been to? But again, you just remind me of something. Most of the time, I'm very scared of using the word, for example, expert. And you say, you know, I'm an expert at something. I'm an expert in peace and conflict, which is my main area of study. And the reason I'm cautious with extreme words, whether it's or being very generous with, you know, expert or how many places or everything I've been, is sometimes we use them quite loosely. And for example, when you say you're an expert, I wouldn't want to say that I'm an expert in this field, but maybe what I would say with confidence is that I have meaningful experience in peace and conflict work, which has been informed by years of practice or research and engagement, you know, with different stakeholders. But then I continue to learn every day. But I have seen sometimes people, for example, to go back to your question, there are people, I have seen it here quite often, who take a gap year and visit countries, you know, one day in Norway, one day in Sweden, one day in Denmark, one day in UK, one day, and then you can tick off and say, I've been to all these countries. But in terms of experience and the richness that you get from them could be a totally different experience. So for me, I really care about that how much in terms of richness do I get in experience when I go to different places, and how does it change my worldview? How does it change how I relate with people? And for me, maybe my visits to different places has taught me to be more open-minded. And again, the single story, to see, to understand that, you know, abaganda bagamba nti atanaitaita yatenda nyino kufumba. Banange, when we were growing up, they told us Uganda is the most beautiful country in the world. I believed it for a long time, until I visited other countries. Nengamba nenga mwatulimba. It's not the most beautiful country. Mwatulimba nyo. Teddy kona cool list of the most beautiful countries. However, it's still my wonderful country. And when I'm introducing Uganda, everyone has learned here. I always say I come from Uganda. It's the pearl of Africa. It's the most beautiful country in Africa. And if you've been to any part of Africa and not Uganda, you've never been to Africa. People have just gotten used to that. So I do love it. Is it the most beautiful country? No, absolutely not. So
not so suggest. Oh, okay. Yes. This your response to my question speaks exactly how much you're living the lessons you've learned from the high profile people you've met. You've ended up mentioning only African countries, but I can read between lines that you've traveled the world. But I'll hold it at that and respect your humility and living a high profile. Generally speaking, your life, your academic life, where you are right now, that PhD you're pursuing, and your life experiences, both in terms of career and social life. Give me 3 core lessons you've learned.
Within my career and my academics?
Your life experience. Now I'm piecing up all these countries, even those you've considered. Yeah?
One of the most important things that I keep trying to remind myself is a lesson I learned at my lowest. And there is a way pain has a way of teaching us very important lessons. So there is a time I really struggled with my health. I had ill health, I think on 3 different occasions. Is it 3? Yes, 3 or 4. I did receive a cancer diagnosis. So during that phase, especially after the 3rd time, I learned something. I don't know. I must have stumbled on it when I'm trying to read and find encouragement. And somebody said the person said that there comes a point in life when the only thing that matters in life is life itself and nothing else. And it struck me because I was at a point where the only thing that mattered in life was life. So it is a deep statement. And if you haven't been at that point, you may not totally understand. But there is a point where there is nothing else that matters except being alive and being healthy. That's one of the key things I've learned in life. But the other thing I have learned in life is it's not over until it's over. Many times we come to a point in life nogamba kaweddem akange kaweddem naye kaganye ng'otunula nga abaganda bagamba nga bikusobedde eka ne mu kibira. You're between a rock and a hard place. But I am telling you, it's not over until it's over. The life has surprises up its sleeve that you have no idea about. And there is a way God can turn things around. Bakuwana ne bakuwa emyaka 10 nga you will not even guess what God can do next.
Yeah,
so
sure.
That's something I have learned here, that life still has a lot of surprises up its sleeve. So it gives me a lot of hope in difficult situations. And you're like, let's keep going. Let's see what is going to happen. Let's see the surprise that life has hidden somewhere around the corner. So yeah, it's not over until it's over.
It's not. Okay, another.
And well, there's so many, but then the other one I would say, the change is because I'm a Christian and I really believe in God. And like you said, we met in a church forum. Let God be God. Ekintu ekyo nkiyize nnyo. Omanyi tulina groups nyingi, tulina WhatsApp groups, tulina ebika, tulina group oba z'abakyalo. God is not part of those groups. Katonda tali mu group yammwe. God is for everybody. Naye tali mu. Omanyi nga obeera mu group n'ogamba tukole bwe tuti bali tubakole bwe. Katonda tali mu group yammwe. So whatever you do, for example, God will not refuse to bless your enemy kubanga gwe tomwagala. Tali mu group yo. He's not your colleague. He's not part of you. Let God be God. So bino bye tukola ne mugamba katugire katubanyumye katukole ki. Katonda ayinza okukola ekintu oba tolina mutima n'obweri n'ozirika n'omugamba Yesu onzise. So what I just want to say is that his ways are not our ways. His ways are far above our ways. Definitely. He's thinking way above ours. And when we realize that, it humbles us. It humbles us because then you know ultimately you're not in charge, you're not in control, somebody else is. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Julie. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. I want to thank you all, those tuning in on Euroforum always. And for those watching us for the first time, we always have Sunday shows, but also shows like this one that are just dropping. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. We have a platform on TikTok where clips of this interview will be posted. So feel free to check out those clips. And also remember, for you who hasn't subscribed, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook and TikTok as well. We tap into stories, life experiences, discuss topics on a range of experiences and what is happening around the world. So that's the Euroforum for you. As you spoke about your life lessons, that there is a time in life where all that matters is life. That leads me to something where we shall dive into after this short break. But it also has reminded me of the news that is running on social media about a Ugandan living in Sweden. Janelle? About, there is a story running on social media about a Ugandan living in Sweden called Eric. As we speak, is fighting for residence. He's fighting to stay in Sweden. He came to Sweden at 11, and right now he's 22. So he's at the verge of being deported. He's in a deportation camp in Sweden. In this context, Eric is fighting for residence, not just residence, but he's fighting for stability in life. Because imagine being deported back to Uganda. That's a whole restructuring of life, fragmentation of every single thing that has made meaning to him in life. But for him, in that context, he's fighting for structured life or for calm in life. But like you said, there is someone out there who, whatever they're fighting for is life. And others are fighting for businesses. Others have debts that are almost sweeping them off the list of life. Name it all. But I just wanted to bring in that there are different phases of life and things we fight for. We shall take a very quick break and come back with the last segment of this show. And I've been very, I've gotten very much interest in where you said that you are diagnosed with cancer. I'll need to know more about that, what the state currently and how the journey is or has been. But we shall take a break for now and come back shortly to take the last segment of this show. Tune in and stay tuned on Euroforum.
Welcome to Euroforum UG, where we address Ugandans from Europe, USA, Asia, Africa, Australia, and all over the globe. We share experiences, opinions, and expertise on current affairs, educative lifestyle, religion, and family matters. Follow, subscribe, and like our social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Euroforum UG. You can also join our live shows every weekend on our social media platforms. For more information, visit our social media platforms or email us at euroforumug@gmail.com or WhatsApp us on +4740 574040. Euroforum UG, communicating with peers.
Yes, you might wonder why we are live on Euroforum on social media at this time of the day. It is 11:48 in Central Europe and 13:48 in Uganda. So the biggest part of the world, this is working time. And why are we here now? It is in understanding and inclusion of our people in the other part of the world, the Oceania continent. Right now, it is it 11:48 night time?
Yes. Yeah,
we
in
have,
a few minutes it will be Saturday morning.
Yes, it is a 10-hour difference between the two, us and them. And of course, finding a balance between the two time zones, we had to land on this. Right now, we have some part of this conversation where it gets a bit sensitive, but again, we have to dare to also dive into those sensitive areas. You said that you are diagnosed with cancer. And would you love to share that bit of life about your diagnosis and the journey and the current state anyway?
Okay, so I will start by saying this, that a human being is divided into four. Let's imagine a square, and then we cut it in the middle and cut it like that. So there are four different squares, right? Four different segments. There is something that people probably know. It's called a Johari's window. So it's the way you see how a human being is viewed. So there is a part of those four parts. One part is a part that people know about you, and you also know about yourself. So it is known to everybody. Then there is a part that is people know those things about you, but you don't know them about yourself. And then the other part is a part where there are things you know about yourself and nobody knows them about you. Nobody, however close they are. And then the other fourth part has things that you don't know about yourself and nobody knows them about you as well. So it is hidden from everybody. The reason I'm talking about is that this is a journey that I think it may have a few things that people may know about, including my own family. And probably it's a journey that I will talk about, and then they will discover there are things they have never known about me. But it's a beautiful thing to share. I have learned that through sharing our stories, we get a chance, first of all, to relive those stories again, but not in real time. So it gives us perspective. But also, it could mean something to somebody at a particular point in life. And so somebody else may relate to it, and it may mean something. They may latch onto it during a difficult time, and it may take them to another level. So I will share a bit of my health story. So growing up as a child, I think I was a very sickly child, but I don't remember why I was sickly or what made me sickly. But quite often I do remember, lots of hospital visits. I don't know if it was malaria. When you're sick, you're just sick. But understanding that the dynamics of the sickness may be another thing. But also how medicine has progressed through the years. Edda, maybe the diagnosis was not very deep or what. So through my teenage years, I was a very sickly child, very, very sickly. And also my time at the university. But then one day, I don't know what prompted it, but I was really feeling unwell. And then I just went into to see a doctor, and I said, I'm not feeling well. I described what they were saying, and they said, sounds a little bit strange. Let's do a few tests and see. So I did some tests, and then he said, I need more. And then we need to do scan. He took it a little bit more seriously. I had never had such kinds of investigations. And the doctor said he had real concerns about my health. And at that time, I was in Uganda. He referred me to another doctor who also did some investigations in Zambia Hospital at the time. And then he said, I think I would want to, do an operation and open up and see, because the results I'm seeing are quite not conclusive. So it's easier if we, opened up and we got to see. So that was my first operation in life. And initially it went well. Then later I got complications, and I rushed back into hospital. It was very serious. It was very life-threatening. I got better, and with time, I did my treatments, and I was okay. And then the doctor said, no, it's not life-threatening as we thought. We had anticipated that it's cancer, but not quite from the tests that we did and everything. So I was happy. And during that time, I went to do my master's in Ireland. So when I went to do my master's, one of the questions they asked me is, have you ever had an operation? Which I thought was a very innocent question. And I said, yes. And what for? And I explained. And they said, okay. So when I went to Ireland, they followed up on that question. And that's how I went into hospital. Because you've had an operation and you've had a history of this, we would want to look into it again. And I said, yeah, sure, I'm not worried about it. The doctor told me in Uganda there's no need to worry after I had done my treatments. It's all good. When I did that test, okay, at that time when I went in for the, for the samples to be taken and all that, the nurse had explained to me and said, well, most likely we will email the results in your mailbox. Probably, definitely, the practice has changed now, but at the time it was okay. Said, however, that depends on the kind of results you will have. So if there is no cause for concern or anything else, you will get an email saying there is no cause for concern or something like that in your mailbox. So, but if there is a concern, we will have to call you in. So it will not be emailed to you, or mailed, actually, not emailed. It will not be mailed to you. Do you understand? Yeah. So I went away and said, well, we expect results to be back within 2 to 3 weeks, thereabout. And I said, okay. So I waited 2 weeks. I didn't get them. So I waited the third week. I did get them. And I thought, oh, it has taken longer. So I kept checking. And when it didn't come, the third week, and it was into the fourth week, I started getting worried. And I remember that day I was at the university when I received a call from the hospital, and the nurse said, oh, is this Julie? Yes. Okay, so I'm calling you from this hospital, and where are you? I said, well, I'm at the uni. And she said, okay, I'll call you back when you get home. And I said, no, I'm happy to speak to you now because I'm not busy. And she said, no, I'll call you back later. And I insisted I can talk, but she insisted she'll call back later when I'm home. She said, when do you expect to be home? And I told her. So anyway, long story short, I get home and I'm waiting for her call. And she calls me and she says, who are you home with? For me, those questions were very leading. And I said, I'm home alone. Why? Are you sitting or standing? At that point, I was thinking, okay, just say what you want to say. Whether I'm sitting or I'm standing, it doesn't matter. Just say, I'm already nervous. Well, she said, well, your results are back and it's not quite good, but it's not, okay, you're not dying tomorrow. I mean, it's not stage 4 or anything at that point. And she said, but yeah, we have booked you in to come and see the doctor and all that. But I had an idea at that point. So I was worried. I went and saw the doctor. And at that time I started, on the treatment that they had given me. And she said, within 6 months, we will have to redo all the tests again and see how you have progressed. And I said, okay, sure, we will do that. So in 6 months, I go back in and it's the same procedure. You will wait for this period of time, but this time it took much longer than 4 weeks to get back the results. And when the results came, she said, I'm sorry, I think it is worse than it was before. So you need to come right away back into hospital. I was devastated. But at that time, I was struggling with my health. I wasn't feeling well. And I met a group of South African nutritionalists at that time who were actually treating people who had serious illnesses, whether it's cancer or any other terminal illnesses or incurable diseases that people had, categorized as such. So I was at my lowest, but these people gave a lot of hope. And they said, well, like you hear many people say today, there is, cancer is just this, you just don't get into treatment, do this. So these people talked about nutrition. And I remember that they talked about going off every cooked food, having to, do exercise. These are the things people tell us, honestly. There is no magic. We just don't listen or follow these things. They said we have to start an exercise routine, but it's not one where you just go and do, what can I do today? Let me run. Maybe it needed to be very guided with a coach to get the kind of results that I needed. And then, of course, there are certain levels I couldn't go to. So I did go through that. And I started the diet program. It was a very hard program because many of the things in that program are things I hated or are things I never...
As much as I've captured, the cancer was stage 2 by then. 2 or 3?
Yes. No, it wasn't 3. It was at stage 2. But the funny thing is, there were many people who were in our therapy group. And I discovered these people didn't tell their families, just like I hadn't told my family. And then I asked them, why didn't you tell your people? Because it's good to disclose. And everyone had a reason why they're not disclosing. And I think at the core of this was we care about the people who are very close to us. And disclosing may do more harm than good. At that time, I was thinking, how will my family take this? I had gone for study. And most of the time I was sick. I had so many extensions of deadlines because I couldn't submit on time. And when you're far from people, you can hide all those things. But when you come within their sight, then there are things you can't hide properly. So there are many people who are taking medication. And what we had known is that that's what we knew. Until I discovered that there are people who take medication and they do have other conditions that are life-threatening and they haven't probably disclosed to the family for the good of the family, as they may think. And I discovered that there are many people who may end up with cancer, may have had a hint or a clue early on, and they didn't disclose, and they're forced to disclose when they're in the last stages, because at that point you can't hide it anymore. And so you hear many people saying, oh, we just got to know, it has been a month ago, and then this person has progressed. I discovered that maybe some people know, some people don't know, but some people know, and they decide to keep it. And
No, actually,
I did that.
Just to relate something, the likes of the late Chadwick, where stories ran, and some people thought it was then that it got to the media, that it got to be known, but maybe, yeah, the other stories told that he had known for long.
Yeah. And he never disclosed, even to the closest people he was with.
Yeah.
It's very common. It comes from two places. Somebody may say it's selfish, but it ultimately comes from a place of care. Because then sometimes people want to say, why didn't you say so that we can be there for you? But sometimes you love your people so much that you'd rather take in the pain alone on their behalf. So it then becomes a very lonely journey. And that is one of the most loneliest journeys I've ever gone on by myself. Because it was long. It's not a one-day journey, but then every time people call you, you are accustomed to saying, I'm fine. And then quietly, everyone is making plans, and the first thought that comes to your mind is, will I live in long enough to be part of those plans? Whether people are planning for Christmas and it's probably July, and they're saying, oh, in December, we will go to the village, or we will go here. And you're quietly wondering, will I be here in December? I may not be here, depending on how this progresses. But then you go along with them.
Just as it said in Luganda, until Kesa Lucha,
Exactly. And that's the point where I learned that the most important thing that matters in life is life. There is a way life can shake you and you come back to your senses. Nenchiga nti ebintu ebisinga it's because we have the luxury to do that. Okunyigira abantu. You have the luxury to do that. I am telling you, if they told you tomorrow is your last day, because it doesn't matter anymore at that point. So what happens is that you try to lift as much burden off yourself as you can, because the burden that you're carrying is quite heavy to carry with other things. So, sungu, or kunyiga, following trends, whether it's fashion or it ceases to matter, because the only thing that matters is life at that point. So it kind of humbles you, but then it gives you a good philosophy to life, where you kind of fly light. For us who sometimes travel, in different countries, we know Africans are known for heavy baggage. Kilo zaabwe ziyitamu, ajja ne keesi nnya babagambye 2 ate n'atandika okunegotiatingira wali. Naye I will not say Africans. I'm one of those who always have, we bagamba 23 obeera ne 23.9. Olina ozimalayo kilo zonna. But I always looked at people who travel light. Literally, they don't even have check-in baggage. Alina just carry on. Nga kali light, kali kilo 5, nakote kali overweight. And, they just go through immigration, and it's quite easy. And it's something I've had to learn to teach myself. Fly light. But sickness teaches you to fly light. All those things to be mattering at that point. So it was a quiet journey. I never talked to my family. And one of the times I went to Nairobi to see a specialist, I had come back from Ireland. Kubanga, we are going to start on these procedures. Nemga tewali nzizenze kanangamba tekisoboka ngoli muradde. Nemgamba yes, nangamba toyina family, oli nfunzi, oli chidi, oli munaku, toyina muntu yenna. Konze no mbalina, but I just didn't tell them that I was coming for medical treatment. And they said, what? And I said, yes. Nangamba, so wabagambye olagawa. Nembagamba, nabagambye ngenda on a business trip. I'm going for work. My family was used to me traveling for work. So I just said I'm going for work, but I wasn't going for work. I was going for medical treatment. So Nangamba, so I'm going to admit you definitely, but it doesn't make sense to me that your family doesn't know. Namugamba, I'll let them know when I get to a point where they really have to know. And it reminds me of somebody I traveled with on that flight when I was coming from UK. Yali Rosemary Nankabira. Yali journalist wa NTV, I think back then. We came back on the same flight. Omwalo yonga mulwadde. Nali mulwadde at that time. I did have a little bit of chit chat with her. Kunyonyi. I didn't know Timorade. She didn't look that sick. She really progressed so quickly. Era nzijukira nagende mulago mulaba nga she's fighting for life natya, because I was going through the same natya nnyo. NTV had done a car wash for her. They were doing all this fundraising for her. I mean, at that point, they had gotten to know. Nayenz, I hadn't gotten to the point where I can talk about it. So, obradde bwamuluma nagenda ne mulaba a couple of times. Ne mulaba nga progressing nga akyuka mangu, and she died. Even then, I didn't talk about it. So, but what I wanted to say is, ekintu ekirala kyanjigiriza is be kind to people. Everybody is fighting a battle you know nothing about.
Yeah,
know nothing about. I may look happy and normal to you, and I was happy. I looked happy to people. I talked to people normally. Naye nga seebaka. Naswana kwebaka. So musawo nangamba, that's the other problem now. Obutasobola kwebaka is going to complicate everything, because you should be able to rest. Naye tugamba abantu ebintu bingi, and sometimes nekundabika. I remember that time I darkened a lot, and I did get a few comments around it. And I just said, oh, it's the weather in Europe and all that. Naye, how we pass comments kubantu is something we really need to be careful about. Oli ayinza okuba nga akoze nnyo, oba nga ageze nnyo, whatever it is. Just be kind. Ennaku emuluma. Abantu batugamba bagenda ebweru babeera bulungi. Omulabye nga bwaddugadde.
Someone never cares.
They don't know
what wound what wound they're opening.
Yeah, so more underneath these clothes, wayinza okuba nga waliyo ebiwundu bye mutalaba. So be kind to people. That's all I'm saying. Just be kind. Wadde talabika nga alina ekizibu, oyinza obutakiraba naye ng'akirina. Nze najja on that flight, I remember very vividly, Rosemary Nankabira looked very normal. She looked okay to me. I didn't think she even had a problem. I thought I had a problem. And we had the same problem. So anyway, that's how that journey went. I did go through my treatments quietly. And when I was in remission and I was feeling way better, I told my family. But I didn't even talk about the whole story and the whole journey. I just said, well, this is what happened, but now I have good results. And it has been a journey since then that I thank God for, but it taught me many lessons. But the most important thing is I pray that I don't forget those lessons. Because when you feel better, it's easy to forget those lessons. And then you just go along with the flow of life. But it's important to always remember Jetuvudde and how far God has brought us. Yeah.
I'm both honored, glad, and encouraged to be the one tapping into this very emotional, fragile, and sensitive story. Thank you for daring to share publicly. Off camera, I understood that this isn't something you've ever done, and this comes in as your maiden time of sharing such a story. I'm honored that we are tapping into it here and right now, and to me, it speaks a lot. It speaks a lot. I've quoted a couple of phrases here, which are definitely immediately speaking life into me about life. There is so much that we take for granted, a lot that we take for granted. And just as that PowerPoint you share with us here on the 23rd, that will be Sunday, where it is about the danger of a one-sided story. Beyond the smiles, like you said, there is a dying soul. And I'm glad that's the message we are getting as we close this year. And I hope people will walk by this. But Julie, just out of curiosity, being a cancer patient, because statistics doesn't have so smiling or encouraging results about recovery from cancer. So this is a disease that in most cases you think you won't be here the following day. How was that experience where you felt like Ngetwagambe mu Luganda and Kyokesa Lucha? How was that experience? Yes, I understand that it groomed you into believing that there is a time in life when all that matters is life. But most beyond that, how was that experience where you weren't sure of if you have life tomorrow?
Life that is lived on short-term basis is totally a different life. You know, fena tumanyi, and we talk about it until, you know, I will die one day. But that one day is not tomorrow.
Exactly,
it's not next week.
Exactly.
And so how you live and plan is based on a very long-term, you know, idea that, you know, where do I see myself 10 years from now or 5 years from now? But if you can't even see yourself 3 months from now, it is very scary. And it is scary, but then for many people, you have to prepare for the worst. You kind of come face to face with death. Nayenga eringanga just eri a few steps away, or there is just a simple wall that is not wall, probably glass, so you can see through it. But what that teaches you is it's important to face your fears in life. Because if you don't face your fears and squarely, those fears will consume you completely. They can crush you, they can at that time I came to a point where nali sitya kufa per se. Naye maybe I worried about my mom, or at that time I didn't have a child, I worried about my family and everyone else. But you know, or maybe you get to a point where no gambo kenzikiriza, now this is not something I have power over, but what do I have power over or control over? It is today. What can I do today? There is a book I read, If Today Was Your Last Day on Earth, What Would You Do? That book meant something to me at that time. If today was your last day and you knew, what would you do? There are many things you would want to do or do right. Then I discovered that if it's a day is also long enough. As short as it is long enough to do certain things. A day is enough to reconcile with people. A day is enough to mend, you know, broken fences. A day, just one day, you can literally mend all of them. Repair, you know, you're back into good relations with people. A day is enough to tell people that you love them and they mean enough to you, and to give them the reassurances that they, you know, they've impacted your life. So a day is that short, but it is also very long. So then I started finding hope in small things like that. Until, okay, it may not be a long time, but even if I have 2 weeks, 2 weeks is a long time. If we're talking about there being long, then 2 weeks is really a long time, right?
Exactly.
Yes. And if you have money, you can even travel, you know, to different places in 2 weeks. So you learn to break down life into small, manageable segments instead of just living life grandly na buli kimu. So I kind of got to that kind of point in life. It first gets very scary, then nga toyagala kwebaka nogamba initially nga wakafuna noga wenebaka nesizuukuka. So it brought a lot of fear about sleeping. And then it caused a lot of insomnia, and it was terrible. And then the body started suffering. That's the bad thing. You see, that's what I told you about fear. fear is our worst enemy. Kati n'otya okwebaka, bw'otya okwebaka n'otunula emisana n'ekiro, it breaks down the body faster. Oba obadde ng'osigaza weeks 3 ziyinza okusigala emu n'ozisalako kubanga otidde kati otidde okwebaka. So that's why I say omuntu oba olina ekintu ky'otidde mu bulamu, try and face it. And I have learned it. It's not easy to face our worst fears or the monsters that scare us most. Naye ne waba muntu woba osobola mugambe Moses, katwogere Moses, wankola bwoti, wankola bwo, kimpisa bubi by the way, kyankola bwekiti. Face it. Now, how he will react is not yours
Your business
to take care of. But wobanga wochi, or you've put it out there, he may have time to think about it and whatever. But so I had what that phase was like. It was both scary. It was very lonely. It is so lonely. Nga togambye bantu choyitamu. So tewali akugambako sorry. Ngolabye oba mnange wabukeeseza. Nobody checks on you in that way. I mean, they would check on you muli bulungi. The usual way you would check on somebody.
And you'd reply to the bulungi.
Exactly.
Because you can't say much. After all, you're conceding the truth.
On days when you don't feel well, on days when I was maybe throwing up a lot, there is nobody to help you. Because nobody knows. So, tobanenya, tobanyigira na banyigira tebamanyi, but there are times when you can do with some help. Atera nenchiga anti no, it's not good. Okufa weka, tofa weka by the way, and that is one of the key lessons that Kiwis teach. Do not die alone in this country. Do not speak. If they don't hear, shout. If they don't shout, scream. Do not die alone. Tofa weka. Tochifira mu weka. We have to all fena tuleme kwebaka ekyalo because olina ekizibu. And it has been a journey for me to learn that. Kubanga je tuva bagamba oluluma munno terugana kwebaka. So meaning people obera nebizibu abantu ne bagenda ne bebaka. It's not so with Kiwis. So it's a bit hard because you kind of live your life through everybody. So oba nekizibu oba nekintu kyonna ebirungi era byonna balina somehow okubiyingira mu bamanya. Naye nebibi it's the same thing, which is beautiful. So tosobola kufa weka. Naye it is a bad thing okulowooza nti we are strong enough to handle things on our own. And it can crush you. It can literally crush you. I think the only thing that took me through that time is God nekwata ku Katonda bwenti nga simuta any minute nga ndaba bwanta oba bwe muta nandekawo tajja kunsangawo. So it felt like that.
Did you reach a level in life where you cursed God? Where you felt that God was unfair?
No. Incidentally, no. I didn't. Because I saw people who suffered way more than I did. And I saw people who had a very short time to ever deal with anything. There are people who, even here recently, I had a friend who was diagnosed and they died in 2 weeks. So when you see how this has been very unkind to other people, and you still have 3 weeks to plan, then you become grateful instead of being very grumpy, if I can say that. So I think I leaned more on stories of people who are in worse situations than I was. And I found a lot of courage from them, especially because they were not complaining. So I tried to stay away from people who must have been complaining. And it's something I learned from Islam. And never despise anybody. Omuntu eyakinsomesa yali driver waffe ku mulimu. Yangamba Auntie Julie, wobanga oyagala okubeera grateful mu nsi, Islam teaches that you look at those who are below you and in our situation. But if you want to complain, look at those who are above you and doing way better and they are in good health, you will find all reasons to complain. That thing stuck with me all my life. So I never felt angry. I just felt grateful for life, but I felt sad that my life had been cut short without me having realized a lot of dreams that I had at the time.
Thank you so much. I'm further impressed, encouraged, but also love the fact that we are daring the undareable, because these conversations are not the most welcoming. I know. I don't want to sound like I'm planting some pessimism or worry in you, but I've also heard that cancer survivor, or no, you told me not to use that word, cancer conquerors usually end up again being diagnosed by cancer in the next test or diagnosis. For your case, have you, from the time you got the first diagnosis and it was all well, have you got any other after that?
No, but I can tell you, I have to test every year, and every year it's the same. The pressure, my pressure goes up. I am worried. I am not eating. Even when you're praying and believing God for the best, honestly, always that is the worst time of the year for me, when I have to go back for those tests. You hate the process of how the procedures are done. There is nothing. It just reminds me of those dark days, and I never get used to it. And until the tests are in, the results are in, there is a level of anxiety. There is a level of worry, even when you're trusting God and you're like, Mukama, nsaba zijjenga nnungi kubanga bwe zijja ngambi. So when they come back and you're like, oh, then I can eat. So it's something I never get used to. And I guess it's the same for other people. When it's so easy when you go or something and you're not worried. You're in the waiting room and, okay, so these are not even results that ever come back in a day. So it's weeks of waiting naturally. So they can be very painful. And most of the time I try to put my mind off it and try to do other things and try to obongo busigala bugendayo, what is coming out of the results. From that time Josie Subira pressure ngeyongera okulinnya. What are they delaying about?
What are you doing? Are you with someone at home? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just thankful to God. Every year when you have a new bill of health, it means a lot. It means a lot because things can just be different, just like that. Yeah.
Yes, that confirms vividly that you're cancer free, and for that we have all the reasons to celebrate, all the reasons to thank God. And all the reasons for those who don't believe in God, all the reasons to thank Mother Nature, all the reasons to thank the support structure around you. And in this, for me, it speaks a lot. It speaks a lot about life and the true meaning of it. But also, this is an opportunity for those watching us. You might be a cancer victim, but you might have lost a loved one to cancer. Or in the other segment, you might be having a friend, a family member who is a cancer victim. This information is both for Julie to tell a story, but also to share from my experience. Perhaps there could be one or two things that could be speaking to you. Julie, a word to those three categories of people I've mentioned, but particularly those that are battling cancer right now. A word to them.
Okay, so first of all, I would want to say this. Let us get into the habit of taking our health seriously, especially you only go to hospital. There are people I talk to now, I don't go to hospital for what? I don't feel sick or anything. Now, having regular checkups is very important, because what happens is, if anything is wrong, if they catch it early, the chances of dealing with it and saving your life are quite high. So, but ekintu kyonna bw'ojjanga obudde buyiseeko kikaluba. I would want to say that. But secondly, listen to your bodies. Aba fenna omanyi twayiga okuguma kuba our training is like that. Nze era ngamba nnyo abantu ffe gye tuva n'abakyala ne bwe baba bali muleba bakugamba guma toleekaana tokaaba bimire, take it in. We are used to taking it in quietly. It doesn't work that way when it comes to health. I have seen people who have been diagnosed from a very simple thing, and then it was just something terribly worse. So listen to your body. If anything feels a little bit off, or watch again, you can go home. Other than you thinking that you know that there is nothing wrong when actually something could be terribly wrong. So listen to your bodies. But for those who are already on this journey and battling this journey, people may be at different stages of that journey. Naye, the common thread I have seen with people who are battling any illness that could be terminal, it could be cancer or anything else, there is power in positivity. I don't know how it works, but there is power in being positive. And it is therapeutic. I don't know exactly, and there is the science behind it probably. Naye, it's important to be very positive. There are people who just refuse. I'm not going to go down with this illness. I've seen them. I will not go down with cancer. And they've been able to, fight it. A lot of our pains and illnesses and all that do respond to positive attitude, positive, attitude of gratitude. They do make a difference. I saw that for myself. Like I said, try and fly light. However, what I will say is that there are people who can get healed with all these therapies, whether it's a combination of pharmacological, interventions or nutritional or supplements, whichever. I mean, different people have different stories. I don't disregard anyone's story because there are people who have gone herbal or whatever, and it has worked for them, depending on many things that I may not know. Now, what I just want to say is that regardless of what woli on that journey, abantu abamu, for sure they'll be healed, and there are so many miracles. But like Jesus said, there are people who may not be healed. It doesn't mean that you didn't do everything that you had to do. It doesn't mean that. And it doesn't mean that you made wrong choices or anything like that. Life happens. God controls life over and above everything else. For some, he will heal. For some, he may not. Ultimately, what matters is your relationship with him. And when you get to that point where you say, this is going to put me in a closer relationship with him, and we figure it out, me and him, then you get peace. I recently was working with somebody who is terminally ill, and he told me something profound. Young Amber, I'm looking into the Word of God and reading the Bible, not for miracles, but for an experience with God. He told me that 3 weeks ago. I was so stunned. Mubulumi bwe yangamba nze sisoma kufuna miracles, nsoma kumutegeera oyo ali waggulu. That's what that man told me. So whatever stage you're at, I think the most important thing is that we can only do so much. Nabasawood, sometimes they can only do so much, but ultimately having a relationship with the giver of life is what makes the difference.
Julie, thank you so much. I'm happy that we've gone this far, and all this that you've shared, I really believe that they've come in at a time when someone out there needed them the most. And I believe to some people, you're scratching where it itches the most. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your journey on this. I really believe that there might be so much we would love to know about this journey, but I also believe that the core has been known. And I want to thank God on your behalf, and also to thank God on behalf of the entire world, because you are an international worker. Losing a soul like you is a great loss to not only your family, but to the world at large. I want to pray that the cancer patients out there, that may your story tap into exactly. I want to pray that may your story be a replica of Judy's story. That is to say, may you be healed someday, that your story may be shared somewhere to inspire another soul. We pray that God comforts and also finds a safe place for those who have already lost their beloved ones to cancer. But in the bigger picture, we pray that may God's will be done. Of course, His will in this case, we pray that all those that are patients and all those that have bruises from having lost loved ones be comforted by God. Julie, as we wind up, there were two questions here. Let me see if I can. Yeah, these ones are taking us back. There was a gentleman here, Abu Matovu. He lives in Oslo, and his question is about your PhD. If you had to explain your PhD to a 10-year-old, how would you describe it?
In a nutshell, my PhD focuses on resilience. Exactly. Probably because of my story. I didn't even realize that. But I'm a student of resilience. And to a 10-year-old, I'll tell them this. So what I am really trying to dissect and understand is how people build resilience in situations that are very difficult, not for a minute, not for a day, but for a long time. People who have stayed in very difficult situations for a very long time. And for example, people who have been in war for a long time, like people who are in Gaza. It is not something that happened only last week. It has been years of that kind of, or people in South Sudan, they've been in war for 70 years. How do those people stay resilient? Where do you get the resilience from? How do you stay strong? Maybe that's what I should say. When you're hit with adversity every day, all your life. So that is what I'm really trying to understand in my PhD, and trying to break it down into very, very, very minute things that can be understandable to touch in terms of being strong.
Thank you, Julie. Another question from Abu Matov. If your PhD were a movie, what would the title be?
I would call it Seeds of Hope in a very hopeless situation, maybe something like that. Seeds of Hope, because a movie title has to be very short. Yeah. So I'm a very strong believer in hope. So yes, and how that hope really helps people to live day by day when there is nothing to hang on to.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. I'm looking forward to our next conversation 2 weeks from, not actually 2 weeks. It's about 10 days from now. That will be on the 23rd in our spaces, that is Central Europe. In your space, it will be 24th, where we shall have a conversation of this, the danger of a one-sided story. And I think this is part of what we've addressed today. Though you're sharing your story, but you are also echoing out spots of that. Abu Matov was also giving a compliment. He said, she looks absolutely stunning, and I think I'm officially in love with her background. That's why I'm matching her house. Genius. And those pink flowers, wow. Yeah. So he wanted to actually let it out before we leave.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Abu. You're very kind.
Yes, and now we would love to stretch it further, maybe an hour or two from now, but unfortunately we cannot. Again, I want to thank you all. I want to give special shout out to these people here. There are so many people in the diaspora doing amazing work, but randomly representing countries. In Norway, I want to give spotlight and a shout out to Lubega Dios. He's a TikToker residing in Tromso, where he speaks on a range of topics, but he's more inclined on immigration, where he creates awareness on a lot. I want to give you a shout out, Sebo, and give you feedback that you're doing really amazing. Irene Visaso Hohem, she's also a TikToker and a PhD student living in Trondheim. She does a lot, but this time I want to spotlight you for your TikTok work you're doing. Okolo mulimu munene to shine out the Ugandan to any Norwegian viewer, but also the Norwegian values to any Ugandan viewers, whoever they know. And then there is this Mufano Alan. Yeah, he's also a TikToker, trying to shine out this beauty of living in Norway, trying to make it comic, also to communicate. But of course, his also line is about integration and looking at the broader picture and embracing the bigger picture of you living as an immigrant as opposed to complaining. I want to cross over to the Netherlands, and this time round, I want to give a shout out to the Ugandans in the leadership of the Netherlands community. Mwebale nnyo omulimu gwe mukola, and we're also looking forward to coming to the Netherlands for the Euro Crane tournament. I know dates will be coming out soon for the tournament, and most likely it will be in the second or first week of July. In Denmark, shout out to you, Smoggy, John Remy, with your Afro Den Reports platform, together with Solomon Emong, omulimu gwe mukola mugwebale nnyo. That's really, really, really great. We want to wind up here. Bingi betuyinza okwagala okwogera bye tukolera awamu oba so ku platform eno, naye njagala kusaba Julie to give your closing remarks as we wait for your next appearance on the 23rd.
No, just to say thank you very much for this platform. It's a wonderful space that you give us to allow us to share our stories, but also to learn. I think one of the most important things you can give to people these days is space to be able to express themselves and for other people to learn and share ideas. I feel that even if I'm at the full stop of the world, you're really connecting me to everybody, and it feels good. It's a great job that you are doing, and thank you very much to the viewers. Thank you for having me. I believe there are many other people you would have had on this day, but you chose me, so I just feel grateful and privileged. And I need to go and sleep. It's Saturday morning. You're still in Friday. So I've switched over to another day completely. And on a different date, it's already 15th of November here. But I wish you a beautiful day wherever you are. For most of you, it's probably still day, or others it's night, like me. And I look forward to sharing with you again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie. To me as well, I want to thank you for your time, your knowledge, and your daring nerves to share your story, the cancer story, a story that would be actually opening healing wounds. But I'm glad that you composed yourself through the whole journey, and you shared not just a story, but you spoke life to someone. You gave encouragement to someone. There is so much you shared here. For me, there have been three when I asked you about your life lessons through that journey, where you said that for you, there was a point in life where all that has meaning is life. And I want to believe that I still ride on the same lessons.
Yeah,
Humility,
absolutely.
Yes, humility, a lesson you've learned from the heads of state, UN delegates, EU delegates you've met. Humility was one you highlighted. You also highlighted remembering that we are humans, that remove those quotes. nze gundi, and remembering that we are humans. That I'll take with myself as well. And among other so many others I've taken with me, I remember that you as an individual have tried as much as possible to keep yourself calm. You've refused to tell me which countries you've been to, but lucky enough, in your story, you've mentioned London, the New York, and so I finally got them. Wherever they know, but also you're communicating a lot to me. Njagala okutumirako in a very, 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 very special way. Uganda, but church members aba Uganda Scandinavian. That's the Adventist Church based in Stockholm, but also having members around Scandinavian, Uganda, in somewhere in New Zealand actually also a member, and in the Asian part of the world. Mwebale nnyo nesunga balaba. That's our church where we worship in Uganda. We time tufuna and tugalawo from the noises of the world to get together. So we sign out for now, and I want to thank my team in a super special way, my Euroforum team, where we run this platform. And very soon, Samantha will be coming back also to ride you through a show. She had a show with Ntege Richard last Sunday where there was so much shared about ebyo byebata tugamba ku Bulaya. Naye wano tetugenda kusukkawo. Saa ziri 6:42 ewo ziri 6:42. What a privilege. Okubeera ku show n'omuntu ng'ali mu lunaku lana oli mulala. Muli awo muli ku byammwe.
Naye nga twatandise tuli mu lwerumu.
Kyongereko. Just imagine how much time you've given us, and this also speaks volumes to us as the Euroforum team. Mwebale nnyo, mwebale ddala. We sign out for now. Bye-bye until next Sunday when we shall be coming back with a show yet to be communicated. Bye-bye for now.
Welcome to Euroforum UG, where we address Ugandans from Europe, USA, Asia, Africa, Australia, and all over the globe. We share experiences, opinions, and expertise on current affairs, educative lifestyle, religion, and family matters. Follow, subscribe, and like our social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Euroforum UG. You can also join our live shows every weekend on our social media platforms. For more information, visit our social media platforms or email us at euroforumug@gmail.com or WhatsApp us on +4740 574040. Euroforum UG, communicating with peers.